Amy Madigan is ex-Marine Captain Barbara Cutter. Everything she trained for, everyone she loved, is about to be destroyed.
Somebody killed, no, murdered my husband. They're treating me as if I were the criminal.
Mayday! This lady established. We're going down.
I've been authorized to take over this investigation. It's now a military matter.
Barbara, the whole thing's got to be a damn setup.
No matter how she got away, she got away. That's what we have to deal with.
Amy Madigan, wife, mother, ex-Marine, caught in the middle of a conspiracy that exploded her world. They left her no choice. She's giving them nowhere to hide.
Hey guys, this is Communications. Welcome to my review of Nowhere to Hide. Nowhere to Hide is a 1987 film directed by Maury Azzopardi. He would go on to direct a bunch of TV shows after this, like he directed one of the TV movies, Stargate SG-1, Children of the Gods. He also directed a few episodes of the Flash TV series with John Wesley Shipp. There was a few other things, including the RoboCop TV series. But this film stars Amy Madigan, Michael Ironside, John Colicos, Daniel Hugh Kelly, and introducing Robin McEachern. And it also has a score by Brad Fiedel. Now, the film came out in 1987 with little to no fanfare. Came out in July, had a very limited release, didn't make any money. And this is really, that's too bad, because this is definitely one of the better films of this genre. Which we're talking about is like action thriller genre. And I guess maybe really what makes it stand out is not necessarily the action, because at the end of the day, the action in Nowhere to Hide is pretty much standard and pretty much stock. Not a lot of it is really that spectacular, but what makes it, the fireworks that it produces aren't really in the action sequences. They're in the lead performance by Amy Madigan. Amy Madigan, she knocks it out of the park with this performance as the lead in this film. She plays Barbara Cutter. And she kicks ass, she takes names, but it's all within the realm of reality. But just the way that the character is written, it's well written, it's well rounded, she's given a lot to do. And she plays a female lead in a film like this that isn't, shall we say, it's not a cliche. It's not, don't call me babe, it's, they treat this character like she's a normal human being. And Gene Siskel agrees with me as well, because Gene Siskel liked this film. He said it was a significant action picture, surprisingly good. Madigan's performances are really believable, and I agree. It really is. It's really the thing that basically holds this film together, and what makes this film really good, in my opinion, really solid for what it is the lead performance by Amy Madigan. And this is another one of those films that is one of those diamonds in the rough that I always like finding. And I got interested in seeing this one, got the itch to see this one after I saw the VHS cover art for this was posted on a website called VHS Collector. And it looked interesting to me. Saw the trailer, and I'm like, oh, I want to see this. And I saw it a couple nights ago, and I enjoyed it. So, really in terms of review, the film, it's sort of like a military sort of conspiracy sort of flick. So it deals with sort of, kind of little sort of things that No Way Out did with Kevin Costner, but I think this film does a lot better job dealing with those issues. It deals with, it starts out with sort of a pseudo, paintball. It's like a pseudo military operation, which is really just, that it's just a paintball game, by these military personnel. You get introduced to Barbara Cutter, Amy Madigan's character, as well as her husband Robert Cutter, and she's the one. Amy Madigan is taking them all out and so forth, and so it's an amusing sequence to begin. An interesting way to begin the film. It also has a good score by Brad Fiedel. Brad Fiedel, he does a good. I think he's one of the more underrated or overlooked composers of the 80s. When you talk about film composers, because he's done a lot of good scores, but a lot of people only point to his score for The Terminator, and it's a great score, and it's iconic, but he's also done a lot of decent scores for a lot of other films, and I thought he did a good job with this score. It worked really well for what it was trying to do. There were moments in the film that were trying to build suspense and trying to be somewhat scary or frightening. And he did a good job with the score in those moments. Definitely did bring to mind echoes of his Terminator score. Now, what happens is there's a conspiracy that gets revealed between these group of military, helicopter pilots. Robert Cutter who was played by Daniel Hugh Kelly. He's okay. Like, he's just there. He's not really that great of a performer, but he's there. And he basically, he figures out through help of his friend, who ultimately ends up betraying him later on, and he finds out that there's something wrong with these helicopter parts. Of course, this is afterwards, after a couple of his buddies actually die in a helicopter crash. And he finds out that some of the parts that were used to build the helicopter were not built properly. So they were built purposely with weaker cores in them. So instead of being filled with titanium, they were filled with aluminum. So that's one of the reasons. So he's thinking, this is not right. Some of my guys are dying. They die because of this mistake. There's something going on here. And so he decides to try to go up to higher power. That's when his friend rats him out. And then you get a sequence where you get introduced to his kid, Johnny, who was played by Robin McEachern. And he does a good job at this. For a kid actor, he did a really good job, in my opinion. I don't think he did anything else after this. And I think he maybe did a few little things here and there, but he never really took off as an actor. I thought he showed a good amount of potential, because he showed some good acting talent for a young age. And the kid, he's really into Voltron, and he's, Dad, can I go up and build Voltron? He's like, you should be in bed, but okay. They go up, and he times his son while he's putting together Voltron, so he's a kid. At least the kid's got good taste in 80s toys. And then, just an absolutely shocking, just devastating sequence where there's a knock on the door, and Robert thinks it's his wife, Amy Madigan, Barbara, and he tells his son to get under the covers. And the door bursts open, and there's two assassins, and they gun down Robert in cold blood right in front of his kid. And this film doesn't pull any punches with this sequence. It literally is one of the most shocking and intense sort of sequences of this sort of ilk that I've seen in a long time, because not only does the kid see his dad get shot in front of him, but his dad's body falls down and rests right near his head and drops from a gun wound on his head, falls on the kid. So it doesn't pull any punches in that regard. It's definitely a stomach-churning sequence. So after that, you're already involved in the film. I thought the way it was edited and the way it was set up by the director and by the editors is really well done, because I thought it was unexpected. Even though you would think about this type of movie, yeah, he found something he wasn't supposed to, they're going to come for him. But you're not expecting it. It's not expecting it to happen the way it does. So Amy Madigan, while this is all happening, she's over working on a sculpture, metal sculpture she's doing for her free time. She hears the gunshots, and automatically she's thinking of her husband or her son. And here come the killers. They're stalking around, looking around the garage. They start shooting at her. She hides behind a wall. She grabs a welding torch, and in a crowd-pleasing moment, grabs it and burns one of the assassins in the face. And he runs out and on fire, and he and his other cohort, they run away, and he puts out the fire, and they head off. But Amy Madigan, she delivers a powerhouse performance in this film. I think this movie, it should not be this overlooked or this forgotten about because of this performance by Amy Madigan, because she does evoke sort of, the performance that, Sigourney Weaver had in Aliens. Very powerful, very emotional, and very realistic, and, performance that packs quite a punch. She goes into her bedroom, and when she first sees her husband dead, her reactions, her emotions are genuine. And then the rest of the film sort of turns into a conspiracy sort of thing. Who can you trust? She tries to get help from a reporter. He ends up basically, he almost gets some information from one of Robert's friends who was there in the room while he was trying to when he figured out about the piece of the helicopter that had aluminum in it. And also there's another thing that helicopter piece, the kid Johnny, he put it on top of his Voltron because, you know, his dad, get on the covers real quick, so he just snapped the thing underneath there, and he has this really important piece of evidence on his Voltron throughout the toy, pretty much throughout the whole film. And his mom, Barbara Cutter, doesn't recognize that it's there until about an hour or so into the movie. But it works so well that it's paced well. It's only an hour and 30 minutes, but it goes by really quick. There's a couple moments where it kind of drags, and I'll get into that. But basically, the plot moves along. The reporter, he gets in contact with the friend who was there in the same room as Robert when they were, you know, found out about the helicopter part. And he's thinking about telling him, you know, kind of a deep throat sort of thing. But he gets killed. The two assassins that killed Robert go after him, and a really nice, taut, little suspenseful sort of car chase that ends in the friend getting basically, his car crashes into a bunch of rebar, and his head, you know, gets knocked off. Now, it's not super graphic, but it gets the point across. And then after that, the assassins then go and try to finish the job, try to get rid of Barbara Cutter. Barbara Cutter, Amy Madigan, she loses her job in the military. She goes in to live with her sister, and you have this really great bit of acting by both the kid and Amy Madigan, where she's trying to get the kid to eat some soup, but he won't. He's so shell-shocked by seeing his dad die that he doesn't want to open his mouth to even, you know, eat. And she, in a fit of frustration, grabs the Voltron and smashes it on the ground. And she's like, "You need to eat," you know, and it's a really genuine performance. And then she, after her outburst, she automatically feels remorseful and grabs her son, and she's like, I'm sorry, I really love you. I didn't mean it, Johnny, I didn't mean it. And then what happens is you have this moment where her sister talks to her while she's in bed, and she says basically later that night, and says that, you know, the gist of it, you know, I don't know if I can live with myself if, you know, my kids end up dying. No offense, but, you know, I can't do that. So basically she tells her, you know, I can't have you here because you're too dangerous. And so she leaves, goes back to the home where her old home. You know, it's swarming with military people, and that makes her suspicious. She's picking up all her stuff and belongings. Then they take her to the military base, have her pick up all her belongings from over there, because now she's no longer employee of the military. She knows there's something wrong. She talks to a few of her friends that were from military pilots, and she's like, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's going on. I'll figure it out. They give her an American flag, and they say a nice thing, you know, he was meant to be buried with this. You know, it'll all work out. And then you have a nice emotional, well shot sequence when she goes to her husband's grave site and grabs the American flag, and it's the moment right here. And she folds it, and, you know, she drapes it over the gravesite. And then what happens is she meets up with the reporter guy, and the reporter guy's trying to, I think I know something's going on. And then she hears gunshots, and the assassins showed up, and they shot the reporter guy in the shoulder. And then they're saying, she shot him, she shot him. And she's like, no, I didn't do anything. So they're trying to frame her now. So you realize that she's in the sights of a very powerful, you know, some very powerful people. So now it's the whole thing. She can't trust anybody. She tries to get help from one of her military commanders. She figures out through the payphone that he's corrupt. She ends up taking her son, and they go on the run. And she ends up staying in a hotel room. That's after a really decently well taught, suspenseful little chase sequence where they chase her after they see her in the cemetery and chase after her, and she hides in like an alleyway somewhere in like a broken down building. And this film, you know, you have a good movie when you make a sequence of just changing a tire, a spare tire, suspenseful, and it does a good job with that. And a lot of these car chases, they're just realistic car chases. They're not really Hollywood stylized, but they're realistic, and they have a lot of edge to them, in my opinion. And they're shooting at her with a shotgun while her kid's, you know, in the back seat, and she ends up escaping from them. She puts the tire on just in time, rams into them, gets away. They're still chasing after her. And what happens, they call the cops on her, so the cops show up and they get involved. And they actually literally, the assassins, they just decide to just run over a cop. And then they decide, okay, that's enough. You know, we'll get her later. And that's when she goes to the hotel with her kid.